Have you ever wondered why sometimes we overcomplicate the process of growing and developing as a ministry leader? In today's episode, I'm joined by Ryan Leak. Ryan is an executive coach who's worked with Fortune 500 companies, professional athletes, churches, and ministry leaders across the country. Ryan is a USA Today best-selling author, and his latest book, entitled Leveling Up, has just released. Together, Ryan and I look at some of the challenges that pastors experience when it comes to self-leadership. And then we explore some simple yet very meaningful ways that we can grow and develop on both the front stage and backstage of our life in ministry. Are you ready? Let's go. Hello, friends, and welcome to another exciting episode of FrontStage BackStage. I am your host, Jason Daye, and every single week, it's my distinct privilege to sit down with a trusted leader and really just talk about some topics that can impact your life. And really our heart at FrontStage BackStage is to really help you embrace a sustainable, healthy rhythm in both life and ministry, in both the front stage of your life and the backstage of your life. And so every week we have one of these conversations, and we do more than just this conversation. Our team actually creates an entire toolkit around the topic that we discuss. And you can find that at pastorserve.org/network. There you'll find a ministry leader's growth guide with questions to reflect upon, with key insights, lots of really good resources there. So be sure to check that out at pastorserve.org/network. Now, our team at PastorServe would love to come alongside of you and coach you and lead you and help be a part of what God is doing in your life and through your life. And right now we have an opportunity for you to get a complimentary coaching session with one of our seasoned coaches. And you can find that information at pastorserve.org/free session. So be sure to avail yourself of that. Now, if you're joining us on Facebook, it is good to have you along. Please give us a thumbs up. Make sure that you subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on any of these great conversations. And if you take a moment to drop your name and the name of your church in the comments below, we love to get to know our audience better, and our team will be praying for you and for your ministry. And whether you're following us on YouTube or your favorite podcast platform, please be sure to follow, to subscribe, again, so you don't miss out on these great conversations. As I said, I was very excited about today's conversation. And at this time, I'd like to welcome Ryan Leak to FrontStage BackStage. Ryan, welcome.
Hey, I'm glad to be here, Jason. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, brother, I'm very excited to have you. You have a unique skill set, and you've done some really cool things. You spend a lot of your time coaching, executive level coaching, Fortune 500 companies, professional athletes, and a lot of church leaders, which is awesome. And I love that God is using you in a very unique way in the world, in both the church space and in the marketplace. You're a USA Today best-selling author. You've done a lot of really, really fantastic things, and I'm just excited that you're taking time to hang out with us here on the show. So one of the things I wanted to kind of pick your brain on as we're thinking about ministry and just leading in the local church, one of your observations about both personal and professional development, so both the front stage and the backstage of our lives, is that oftentimes we settle and find ourselves either stuck or, as you say, kind of coasting along. And yet, Ryan, you share that all of us, we have the potential to develop ourselves and essentially level up our lives, right? So, Ryan, from your experience, why is it that leaders, even driven leaders, people who are out there who are making things happen, why is it that we often settle for less than we really could in our lives and in our ministries?
That's a great question. I think part of it is we are creatures that do what we're told. And so I think a lot of us, when we are given a job, it's like, okay, well, I did my job. I did enough. I checked the box. And so most people live lives where they look at the boxes and they check them. But it takes a rare leader think it takes a rare person to say, "I'm gonna create boxes." Like, I'm gonna create the box. I'm not the ones checking the box. I'm the one creating the box. Somebody's gotta create the box. So, you could either take the boxes you were given and say, "Okay, we're gonna check these lists, and once we're done, okay, well, we checked all the boxes." Or you could be the kind of person that says, "Man," and this is what I think everybody has to do. I'm not the guy that says everyone should be the lead pastor. Everyone should have a big church. Everyone like that. That's I'm not that person. I'm the guy that says I think we all should be reaching our potential. So, regardless of what level that ends up being on, it's just like, no, I hope that you're able to reach your potential in the place that God has put you. And so I think what happens for a lot of us is we say, is it good enough for the herd? Is it good enough for my community? Is it good enough for the people I went to college with? Is it good enough for the denomination? Box check, box check, box check. Instead of going, Lord, like, if there's more that you've called me to, I don't wanna miss that. And for some, it could be less. Some people could be doing too much. Just going, "Hey, like, I didn't call you to do that. You're in a lane, you're doing way too much." And so I think it can go in one of 2 directions, but I think for a lot of people, they end up settling just because they check the boxes.
Yeah, that's good, Ryan. And I love that you brought up the point that maybe we are doing some things that God's not calling us to do, because that's the
Mhm.
kind of the flip side of it. Sometimes we can get so driven, and so caught up in our kind of our own agenda,
Yeah,
as opposed to sitting back and letting God speak into our lives, letting God direct us, that we can
yeah,
overshoot what God's called us to do, and
yeah,
in that way we're missing out on things as well. So it's fascinating that you brought that up, Ryan. As you talk about in your newest book, Leveling Up,
yeah,
you talk about this idea that there are kind of some levels in our lives, and this is
yeah.
kind of how you kind of piece it together. So talk to us a little bit about um, what exactly do you mean by these levels in our life, and how should we take those, and how should we not
Yeah.
take them? You know what I mean? Because you're
Yeah.
saying something very specific, and you don't want
Yeah.
people to just like run with it. So kind of
Sure.
clarify what do you mean by these different levels?
Yeah, so I use the phrase a lot. There's levels to this thing, and I think that's a phrase that's used, in many different arenas. Whenever you see somebody that you would consider a next level person in any arena, it could be somebody in sports. You're like, oh, there's levels to this thing, or whether it's somebody that has something that is bigger than yours. That could be a bigger house or a bigger organization, and you're like, oh, okay, so there's levels to this thing. Well, I think when it comes to the most important areas of our life, there's sort of these levels. Even one of the phrases I use, like whenever I'm doing like a keynote on this, is almost even modes that people can be operating in. So, level one is aimless. I mean, this is a person that just is like, dude, I have no earthly idea like what I'm doing with my life, like at all, just clueless. Level two is a person that's stuck. Biggest difference between aimless and stuck is a person that is stuck. It's like they know they should be doing better. They can actually see a promised land, if you will. They're just going, "I still have motivation. I they're just they're just stuck." Level 3, is when a person is coasting, going through the motions. Their life is on autopilot. They're doing what they're told. They are indeed checking boxes. A level 4 is a person that is developing. They have systems in their life that have served them well, that simply allow them to have incremental progress over the course of their career. They are going somewhere in life. They're just not going there with a lot of intentionality. They're just again, they're they've set things up for them to get promoted every couple of years, and they're doing the deal. Level 5 is thriving. This is where a person is truly in their sweet spot. They really are in a place where they feel like they're doing what God has called them to do. Things are rolling on all cylinders. Their life is not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. However, they do wake up with a little bit of a pep in their step. They use phrases like "we get to." They don't have to do anything. Like they see life as an opportunity. Level 6 is what we call mastery. This is where you are so good at what you do that you're actually able to invest in other people to pull it off for themselves. So in the Jewish culture, there is what's called levels of generosity. And the highest level of generosity is actually not giving anybody money, it's actually strengthening their hand. In other words, for me to give you a job, it's the idea of teaching a man to fish versus giving him a fish. That's what happens at what we call level 6 mastery is you are investing in other people enough to say, "Hey, um, here are some things. I've thrived long enough. I can make a difference in somebody else's life."
Yeah, that's great, right? And that gives us a good framework, I think, to
Yeah.
kind of reflect upon. And what's
Yeah.
interesting as you're walking through those, there may be some areas of our life where we feel like we're coasting. There may
Yes.
be another area of our life where we feel like we're thriving. So it's
Absolutely.
interesting as you look at the different arenas of within our own lives, those different
Absolutely.
spots and places.
Yeah.
But the beauty of thinking through, if I'm in a season where I feel stuck,
Yeah.
that's not where I have to stay, right? That
No.
there's
No, not at all.
opportunity, exactly,
Yeah.
and I love that. Now, one of the things, and this is where we get into I mean, this is all good stuff, but this is where we get to the really good stuff. One of the things that I love about you, Ryan, is that this whole idea of self leadership. You say it's absolutely key for us to live, into the fullest of what God has for us, right? That
Right.
there does to take this piece. We can't just sit back and let the world and everyone around us, somehow, magically make us into,
Sure.
the life that God has this for us.
Yeah.
That God asks us to lean in, and
Yeah.
that there takes us, and you read scripture, you see there's a lot of talk about self-discipline, this idea of self-leadership, this idea of, being intentional, as you've said, being
Yeah.
thoughtful, that we don't just sit back and hope God figures it all out, and then we're just along for the ride. So
Mm.
self-leadership, very, very key. But and I think a lot of people, if you just sit and talk with them, Ryan, they would agree, yeah, self-leadership's important. But um we're busy people. We're uh,
We are.
we're we're busy checking boxes, right? We're doing the
Uh-huh.
tasks. We're trying
Uh-huh.
to keep all the
Uh-huh.
plates spinning,
Right.
and often that self leadership piece kind of falls down the kind of priority list.
Oh, yeah.
So, talk to us a little bit, Ryan, about how do we begin to reimagine or maybe even restructure our lives as pastors, as ministry leaders who have wearing a ton of hats, right? In the
Yeah.
ministry, we've got a lot going on.
Mm.
How do we begin to rethink this idea of self leadership?
Yeah. Well, one, I wanna encourage some pastors right now because pastoring is a very what I've never seen on a pastoral job description is be prepared to be lonely. Nobody
Mm,
says that. No one there's not a class in seminary for that.
right.
You can't go to Harvard and get a class on that one. And so you're just not prepared for that level of loneliness that you experience, and you pastors more than any position that I can think of truly have to be self-led. I work with C-suite executives all around the world. They don't have to be on in front of people and investing into souls once a week, 50 times a year.
Right.
Like, they don't like, now again, they've got other problems and they have to be self-led too, but in terms of, you know, the their jobs allow them to have personal problems and still do their job, like, whereas pastoring is it's a challenge for sure, and you due to the nature of what we do and the authenticity in which we'd like to do ministry, it's, like, very difficult to tell people how to raise their children when yours are acting crazy.
Yeah, it's true.
It's very like, so you have a job where you are, spiritually guiding others, and that's challenging, and so to lead yourself, I think is sometimes all you have is that mirror, and you're getting up on a stage, and you're going into a meeting, and in the back of your mind, you're thinking, "I wish someone was pastoring me right now. I wish somebody was leading me right now." And I just know so many pastors and so many leaders who are leading on empty. And so I pray that today's episode is a resource that is refreshing for them, that is fueling them, and is giving them something to chew on that's going to help them over the next year. So I think self leadership, the idea of that for pastors, I think is vitally important because if a pastor doesn't lead themselves well, I don't think that they can lead a congregation well. And so I think it starts with us looking in the mirror and and being willing to be honest about who we are. I think about chapter 2 in the book. That's the self-awareness question, where you ask the question, "What's it like to be on the other side of me? What's it like to be on the other side of me?" I just don't think enough pastors are asking themselves that question. It would be great if you had another pastor, another leader to come alongside you and say, "Hey, did you know what it's like to be on the other side of your preaching? Hey, did you know what it's like to be on the other side of your counsel? Do you know what it's like to be on the other side of your leadership? Do you know what it's like to be on the other side of being married to you, parented by you, stuck in a group chat with you?" I mean, we could go down the line of thinking about what it's like to be on the other side of us. And I can't tell you as a communicator, as a speaker, as somebody that gets to teach in churches all around the country, I am amazed by how many teams I've sat with in church who, when I ask the question, "Hey, what's it like to be on the other side of your pastor?" 9 times out of 10, 9 times out of 10, he preaches too long. It's the truth. He preaches too long. Then I say, "Have you told him?" No, no, we can't. We can't." And I'm going, "Well, why not?" And I know why they can't, because the last person that told them that doesn't work there anymore. And so I remember me and my wife, we were sitting with a couple and they were talking about the journey of their marriage. And the wife said something I'll never forget. She said, "At the beginning of our marriage, he wasn't in a place for me to be honest with him, but now he is. And our marriage is different because of it." I sat there and I thought to myself, what am I not in the place to hear that I need to hear? Like, what's the thing that my family, friends, and colleagues are going, "Oh, if we could just tell Ryan this, like, this is what it's like to be on the other side of him, and he just doesn't know." He's just not in a place to hear. And so I just had to, kinda get to this conclusion, like, you can handle the truth. And so I think as pastors, as leaders, I think we have to be the ones to start that conversation, to be able to go, "Hey, what's it like to be on the other side of me?" And if I preach long, it's going, "Hey, okay, so if it what would shorter actually look like? Would that be better for church, the staff?" Because what we all can fall prey to is our fan club. So if we hear from 5 people, "Man, it's the best message I ever heard." I didn't preach long, I'm amazing. Sometimes I'm amazing. It's like, no, well, and so you can't fall for the fan club hype because you can hear from 10 people and it feels like 10,000, but it really was just 10. And so to get objective feedback, to be able to go, "Okay, man, how what what is it like to be on the other side of me and experience me?" And I'll just tell you what I'm learning about myself of what it's like to be on the other side of me is you have a father, husband, leader, friend who's consistently multitasking.
Mm.
It's like nobody ever gets my undivided attention. In fact, if you were to poll my friends and family and kids, it would go, in fact, we always have Ryan's divided attention. Even my clients would go, "He's here, but he's also thinking about his family." And then my family would go, "He's here, but he's also thinking about his client." And so I'm realizing, like, hey, that's what it's like to be on the other side of me. Nobody's had that conversation with me. I'm just asking that question a lot. "Man, what's it like to be on the other side of me?" And I'm noticing, like, even with my son, like, who's teaching me the most about self-awareness right now, is like, man, on the other side of me, man, sometimes it's a dad that's irritable. Sometimes it's a dad that's just on his phone or checking an email or, letting his inbox run his life, and so I've just had to be very intentional about that. I think that question makes us considerate. I think that's what it means to lead yourself well, is to be able to go, "Okay, I've asked myself some of these questions," and not that the conclusions are always self-loathing, but I think they're self-improving to go, "Man, okay, let me just next meeting, how about I don't even bring my phone? What would that look like?" Like, everyone gets my eyes. Everyone gets my literal undivided attention. Like, before we started this, what did I have to do? I had to hit do not disturb because if I don't, it's gonna ding, and then I'm gonna look. Ding! Oh, okay, alright, and then instantly, I'm gonna be thinking about replying to them as soon as this thing is over, and you're gonna be able to tell. You won't be able to prove it or know exactly what's going on, but you're gonna go, "It's like he wasn't all there." So, for me, what I'm doing is I'm going, "Man, I gotta lead myself better," and I'm not waiting for my family, friends, and loved ones to have an intervention with me to go, "Hey, things may not be as awesome of an experience on the other side of me as I think it is." So, I tend to err on the side of caution there to go, "Man, let's take this thing to a new level."
Yeah, that's aw Ryan, I love that, and I love the idea that, even in talking through this idea of self-leadership, you know, you make it clear that, "Hey, this we need to be intentional. We need to take the
Yeah.
initiative," right? But
Mhm.
self-leadership does not mean, um, solo leadership. In other words, some of the things
100%.
that you talked about is it's self-leadership, but you're inviting other people into the discussion, which
Yeah,
I think is a great distinction because lots of times we think of self leadership as me, sitting in my office alone, making myself better somehow,
sure.
right? which
Yeah,
which doesn't really typically work because we slip into
yeah,
that thing about, like you
yeah.
mentioned, we're thinking about all the great things people say about us, so we
You're right.
really don't change at all, right? We just like focus on all the good stuff. So I
Yeah.
love that idea that self leadership, although it's initiated by us and it's intentional by us, it is not only us,
Mhm.
right? So
$100%.
talk a bit about that, the community aspect of
Yeah.
self leadership, if you could.
Yeah. Yeah, in the book, I say you need the mirror and you need the friend. You need both. And you need to be able to have hard conversations with both. I think inviting someone else in, what it does is it produces accountability. I think for a lot of pastors, there is this, one of the things I've just been encouraging pastors to do is to willingly come off the pedestal. Because pastors are put on a pedestal, then you feel like you have to, like, remain on this pedestal, and it's like this you create this unrealistic expectation of yourself that if pastors are honest, they kinda start lying about the realities of their life. And so I've I've kinda gone the other direction in my communication of putting myself in the boat of everyone in the audience. And being very honest about that. So, speaking at a mega church a couple of months ago, and I said, "Hey, my marriage is average," and you heard this like people did not know what to do with that statement. It's like, "What? What do you mean?" I went, "Yeah, I mean, we're 7. We're about a 7, you know? Like, we don't have blow up fights, and, we're not rubbing each other's feet every night either, you know? It's like, yeah, we're about average. Like, we have the tensions that the average couple has around scheduling and children and what we're gonna eat for dinner, and, "Oh, I forgot. Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot to take out the I mean, like, very we're average." I got invited to speak to a marriage conference the other day, and I was like, "I'm not the one to be doing this," and a couple before us that got up and just they were holding hands, they did a skit, they did this whole thing, and they pray together every night, and I'm just like, "That's awesome." They're like, "And closing us out is Ryan Lee." I got up there, I went, "Hey, I'm just let you know right now, my marriage is average. My wife's at home." Just in case you're wondering. It's 10 o'clock. She's asleep right now. Like, I can't even believe I'm here. Hey, here's the deal. You know that couple that's got up? They're amazing. I'm telling you, like, we're average. You wanna know how often we pray? Sometimes. Okay? That's what we do, okay? We I'm gonna give you 4 things tonight that I wish I was doing better in my marriage. Number 1, and I just went through it. And every husband in there goes, "I can relate to that." And so for me, I've just gone, "Don't put me on this pedestal. Don't put my marriage on this pedestal." No, I'm very, very normal. I just spoke on anger this past weekend. I started off the message and I was like, "I'm angry." And and I would love for you to believe that I don't have anger issues. But the more I started writing the message, I went, "I think we all do."
Right.
Man, I much more and more I think about it, every person I talk to has a little bit of something in them that they're just angry about. Politics, referees, their favorite sport. I mean, the airport is where I'm at a lot. You talk about a group of angry people, man, people are always angry. It's like, no, we're all in this. And so for me, I've just decided to just, hey, if you think less of me, guess what? Thinking less of me is good for me. And so I think long answer to your question, I think that we don't wanna invite someone else in for accountability because we think, "Well, if they know who I really am, they may think less of me. They should think less of you. That's good for you." And the reason I've gotten so excited about people thinking less of me as of lately is because at least they're thinking of the real me
Mm,
versus them coming to the conclusion that I'm somebody that I'm I'm not that somebody. I've actually become okay, somewhat addicted to disappointing people. Man, I just thought that you were just superhuman. Nope, regular human. Sorry to disappoint you. Man, I met Ryan and it was underwhelming. I told you that. I told you it was gonna be underwhelming, and I'm glad that you were underwhelmed, and I'm glad that you don't think that highly of me. However, I do think you should think highly. Jesus,
mm,
he's awesome. He doesn't disappoint, but if I disappointed you, that's a good thing because I'm okay coming off the pedestal.
right.
I'm okay with you thinking less of me, and so I think a I think a pastor leader has to come to that place in their own journey with the Lord, with life, with people, and I'm not saying you should bleed on stage. I'm not saying that, but I am saying, like, for us, we can have this larger than life thing because we're on stage. If you're in a larger church, you're sometimes even being streamed, and people associate stream with TV, which if you're on TV, you're what? Famous. Now you're Christian famous. And so they can kind of make conclusions about your life and whatnot that are just not true. That's the thing, is it's not true. Like, so I just I I love the whole theme of your podcast, Front Stage Backstage. Every single one of us has met a pastor at some point that we thought was something different, and we saw them backstage and we went, "Oh."
Right.
And in that moment, it's like, man, what do we do with that? And again, we're not talking integrity stuff. I mean, it's just like there can just be a and so I think it's on us to see, I was speaking at a church, really large church, and they went, "I can't believe you came to the lobby. Oh my god, you came to the lobby and shook hands with people?" I went, "Yeah," and people stood in line and started taking pictures. And I was like, "Why are you taking pic" and again, in their mind, because 'cause I'm like, I don't think of myself as this famous pastor, it's weird. But in their mind, "We've always just wanted to meet you, this is awesome." I'm like, "Okay, well, I'll do it." Well, I just started doing it more and more, and you know what they started doing? They stopped taking pictures because it became normal. It became like, "Oh, okay, he's" but as long as I stay in my green room or whatever that is, or stay away from it becomes this elite thing. It's like, "It's not an elite thing. It's just it's" and once I came off that pedestal, it's just like, "He's just a normal guy. He's just a normal guy." It's like, "Yeah, I tried to tell you that a long time ago. You just you just didn't do it." So so I think inviting someone in, it humbles you to go, "Yeah, I got somebody in this church who's, like, not the pastor that's holding me accountable on things that I confess sins to, that I sit with and talk about struggles and frustrations and try and have healthy relationships. Yeah, I'm in a small group in this church, and I think you should be in one too. Like, I'm not just overseeing the small groups, I
Right.
participate in them. Like, there's somebody in my life that's going, "Hey, how are you really doing?" And I actually tell them. I think you should have the same thing. And so I think that's what the hard part about self-leadership is, inviting someone in that you can trust, because sometimes people, when you are in charge, there are people that will use your kryptonite against you, so to speak. And so that can be very, very difficult for people. And so I think the having a trusted friend, a lot of times pastors elect to have a trusted friend outside of their church, not within it. And again, I'm not going to give you a bunch of rules on how you should do that, but um, I do think it's important that there is a high level of accountability, and that we should be the type of people that seek that out. I tell church leaders all the time, if there's something that we're doing that we can't share with the congregation, that's probably a clear sign that we're doing something wrong. And I get that everything doesn't need to be shared because people can't handle information. However, when we find ourselves hiding, if we find ourselves with stories that we wouldn't be proud to tell, I
Right.
think we're in trouble. And so the worst thing a pastor can do is be on that island and have no accountability. So
Yeah, that's good. And I think that's as you're sharing there, this idea of people talk about authenticity, transparency, these types of things. And I,
yeah,
I think you're right in saying, obviously everything doesn't need to be shared, but you need to be in a posture where you're not hiding things, right? Because those are
yeah,
two different things, right?
yeah,
Sharing things versus hiding
100%.
things, right? There's a difference there. I think that's an important distinction. I love that. One of the
Yep.
things, Ryan, that I love, and this is this new book of yours, Leveling Up. So you go through. I love this 12 questions to elevate your personal professional development, because really what you do is
Yeah.
you make this idea of self leadership very
Mhm.
accessible to everybody, and you
Yeah,
do it through these questions. Like it's
yeah,
it's just very like, hey, like you were talking about that first question, the self awareness question. You just
yeah,
you just take one of these questions and you just dive into it. So
yeah,
so this whole idea of self leadership doesn't have to be.
yeah,
Um, Sometimes we make things a lot harder than they have to be, right? And
yep,
when we think they're harder, then we don't do them.
yep,
But you've distilled this down. Absolutely love it. In leveling up, you've distilled it down to these 12
yep,
questions, and I shared with you earlier, and I'm fine to share it now. For
yeah,
2023, like I got this book for 2023. This is one of the books I'm going to spend on those 12 questions a month on each of those questions, and just
awesome,
kind of do a deep dive, man, and just like
awesome,
just allow myself to. I commune with God over these questions, reflect on these questions, my relationship with God, my relationship with my family,
love it.
and professionally and everything. So, this idea of making it accessible.
Yeah,
Talk to us a little bit, Ryan, about how sometimes we make things a lot harder than they need to be, and
yep.
why the accessibility piece is so important.
We do overcomplicate, I think, leadership, self-leadership. I think we overcomplicate church and overall experience. It's interesting. I've had an opportunity to travel the world, corporate America, church. I've traveled enough. I have status with every airline, every hotel chain. I've stayed everywhere. My clients have flown me first class. I have stayed in Ritz Carltons. I have stayed at the Holiday Inn. I have stayed at Four Seasons, your everyday Marriott, your Hilton, your Hyatt. Your I When it comes to customer service, I am the prototype of what the experience, like, I've experienced it in every city, you name it. Here's what's so interesting to me is the sheets at the Ritz-Carlton are not that much nicer than the ones at your regular Marriott. Pillows are pillows. You sleep on them. That's what you do, okay? Like, but here's what's interesting about some of the top brands in the world. It's not that their stuff is nicer, it's that the people are. That's it. Like, it's not like at Nordstrom, they're massaging your shoulders when you walk in. No, you could get that same sweatshirt at Macy's, but the people are not as nice. It's amazing to me that you'd be surprised by how much things would change in your life with a little bit of a smile, just being nicer to people. Like being nice and being kind is just being considerate. That's all it is. It's I did a Chick-fil-A event. One of the mantras that they have at Chick-fil-A is, if you're a leader there, you pick up the trash. You see trash on the ground, you just pick it up. I thought, not that hard. Not that crazy of a concept. Yeah, pick up the trash. I go to this next event, and there was a piece of trash on the ground, and I saw a leader kick the trash underneath the bleachers. And I thought, oh, yeah, it's actually revolutionary because that's what most people do. Most people won't pick up trash. And so I think sometimes we overcomplicate it and we think that to take things to the next level, it's going to take a lot of money or it's going, no, you'd be surprised what can happen when I think we're just not, it's just like, it can't be that easy. I'm like, I think you'd be surprised. Like, dude, I pulled up to a Ritz Carlton one time and I picked up food on the way from the airport. The valet guy, I've had my car valeted a lot in my lifetime. Never had a valet guy do this. He opened the door and he said, "Hey, could I throw that away for you?" What is that? He's
Right.
just nicer. That's it. He's just nice. Like, he didn't say, "Hey, can I wash your car for you?" Which some valet services do. He didn't say, "Hey, can I vacuum? Can I?" No, 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 no. He just said, "Hey, can I throw that away for you?" I looked at the trash and I went, "Yeah." And that was my first time at a Ritz Carlton, and I went, "Oh, this place is next level." Why? The food wasn't that great. What is it, Egyptian cotton? Yay. Like, the TVs aren't bigger, the bathrooms aren't big, like, no, people are nicer. They are very, very considerate about somebody else's experience, and so I just thought, you know Disney's whole customer service training is all around doing unto others as you would have them do unto you? That's it. It's they're just nicer than the workers at Six Flags. That's it. Theme park, rides, things for kids. But they just train people to go, "No, like, we should be considerate." And I honestly, when I think about all of the different experiences that I've had around the world, I think, "Man, it had nothing to do with money." It had everything to do with people's mindset around, "Hey, like, I wanna be really good at my job." And here's what working with teams, doing events that require so many moving parts, what I've discovered is that when everybody commits to doing their job well, it's amazing what we can pull off together. So if you're a sound guy and the sound guy's going, "It's gonna be the best sound they've ever had." It's amazing what happens when he does his job and I do mine, and the
Right.
lighting guy does the same, and the musician does the same, and the host does the same, and like, when everyone comes to the table and they go, "Listen, if I'm a greeter, I'm gonna be a next level greeter." Like, it doesn't matter what my position is, like, I'm gonna be really, really good at my job, and, yeah, I'm gonna be nice. I'm gonna go out of my like, what would be an amazing experience for these people? It's just, man, some of the top brands in the world teach their people to look beyond the status quo, and I think it's accessible, like, and so many people say, "Oh, my pastor, he's a jerk," or "My leader," or "My boss," and I'm just like, "Yeah, but you don't need their permission for you to level up, right? Are you waiting for them to level up before you do?" And so I believe what these questions give people is the opportunity to take ownership of their own development, to say, "Hey, no, this is on you. Just because your leader has an attitude does not give you permission to have one." Some people go, "No, no, it was the leader's fault." You think that I would look at one of my leaders and go, "It's his fault that I'm a rude person?" No. No, that's not a thing. I'm sorry. I'm not buying it. Like, no, if you wanna grow, you will, and
Right.
if you don't, you won't. And so that's the overall heart of the book is going, it's like, "Man, do you just teach people to be nicer?" I went, "Sometimes." Why? Because people are mean. That's why. It
Yeah.
actually is revolutionary, and it doesn't sound revolutionary, but it's just like, you think the next time you go out, you just take inventory of the people that are going out of their way to say, "Hey, I wanna make sure that you have a good experience." Dude, I went to get a candle from Nordstrom one time, 3 employees started helping me. "Okay, well, if he gets the candle for this," and I'm just like, "What's going on? What?" They're just being nicer. If I go to Bed Bath& and Beyond, "Here it is. Thanks. Where's the lines of the," it's just a completely different experience. The candle costs the same. People at Nordstrom are just taught, "Hey, let's give them an experience," and I think that we should be thinking about that as leaders of going, "Man, if somebody walks through the doors of our church, man, I hope that they're," first off, do you know the mental hurdles people have just to go through the doors of the church?
Right.
I mean, I just try and recognize that at the door to just go, "Man, like, you got your kids ready, took you 2 hours to get ready. This next 60 minute should be amazing." Like, that's the least we could do for you. Like, thanks for coming today. I really mean that. I'm not just saying welcome to church. No, for real. Like, I take time to recognize that people, like, they paid a price to be there, way beyond tithes and offering, and and it makes a difference. You'd be surprised. So that's what I think, is important around some of those self leadership components.
Yeah, I love that.
Dude, I could talk about this stuff all day long, dude. I really
Yeah,
could.
yeah. I know, man. I know, and
You
it's
can
good. It's all
imagine,
good
I'm just like,
stuff.
dude, I grew up in the church. I work with churches, and I'm just going, man, I like you said, I think we can grow. I think we
Right.
gotta uncomplicate some of this.
Yep, that's good, brother. That's good. Hey, listen, it's been awesome conversation. I know we
Yeah,
could sit here and talk for hours. Great
yes,
stuff. So, just a couple things before we wrap up, Ryan. One, what's the best way for people to connect with you if they want to get the book?
yeah,
Those types of things.
of course,
How
yeah,
how how?
RyanLeak.com is the easiest way for you to get all things Ryan Leak. You can go on Amazon,
Mhm.
Target, Barnes& and Noble, wherever books are sold, you can pick up your copy of Leveling Up. I also have an assessment on my website too, where you can, answer some questions, and it'll tell you, where we think you are on the levels professionally versus personally. Like you
Cool.
said earlier, you could be thriving at your job and coasting at home. You could be coasting at your job and thriving as a parent. Like those are real things. And then we give you some next steps and different things that we think would be helpful for you to take your life to the next level.
That's awesome, brother. So we'll have links for all of that at pastorserve.org/network in the toolkit that goes along with this episode. So we'll have
Yeah.
links. So those of you who are watching along or listening along, you can go there and we'll get all that stuff for you. And then Ryan, as we close down, I want to give you just an opportunity
Yeah.
to final thoughts that you'd want to share with brothers and sisters who are in
Yeah.
ministry serving.
Yeah.
What words do you have for them as we close down?
Give your absolute best. And there's a fine line between learning from another church and comparing yours to theirs. And that that line gets blurry really fast. And in the process of seeing what God is doing through his kingdom, through churches all around the world, you can lose sight of what God has called you to do. It's just easy. It's just an easy trap for any of us to fall for. And so I just want to encourage brothers and sisters that are watching this podcast to to lock in 2023 on what God has called you to do and the people God has called you to serve. Because sometimes what can happen is you can get so focused on the future because we're these visionary leaders and we're thinking about the future and growing and sometimes you can find yourself talking to a group of people that aren't in the room. And I just want to encourage each and every brother and sister in Christ. Hey, be in the room.
Mm,
Serve the people that God has put in front of you right now really well. And sure, prepare for the future, but in the process of preparing for the future, do not ignore the present. Be present and serve those people well. And don't fall for the trap of looking over at another church and then going, we're just, nah, if only we would. And no, like God put you in that neighborhood and that community for a reason. So show up for that community. That's what I would encourage people with.
I love that, man. That's a great word, Ryan. Appreciate it, brother.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much
All right.
for making time to hang out with us on Front Stage
Absolutely.
Backstage.
Yes.
It's been a joy.
Yes, I appreciate it.
All right. God bless you, my friend.
Okay.
Now, before you go, I want to remind you of an incredible free resource that our team puts together every single week to help you and your team dig more deeply and maximize the conversation that we just had. This is the weekly toolkit that we provide, and we understand that it's one thing to listen or watch an episode, but it's something entirely different to actually take what you've heard, what you've watched, what you've seen, and apply it to your life and to your ministry. You see, FrontStage BackStage is more than just a podcast or YouTube show about ministry leadership. We are a complete resource to help train you and your entire ministry team as you seek to grow and develop in life and ministry. Every single week, we provide a weekly toolkit, which has all types of tools in it to help you do just that. Now, you can find this at pastorserve.org/network. That's pastorserve.org/network. And there you'll find all of our shows, all of our episodes, and all of our weekly toolkits. Now, inside the toolkit are several tools, including video links and audio links for you to share with your team. There are resource links about different resources and tools that were mentioned in the conversation, several other tools, but the greatest thing is the Ministry Leaders Growth Guide. Our team pulls key insights and concepts from every conversation with our amazing guests. And then we also create engaging questions for you and your team to consider and process, providing space for you to reflect on how that episode's topic relates to your unique context at your local church, in your ministry, and in your life. Now, you can use these questions in your regular staff meetings to guide your conversation as you invest in the growth of your ministry leaders. You can find the weekly toolkit at pastorserve.org/network. We encourage you to check out that free resource. Until next time, I'm Jason Daye, encouraging you to love well, live well, and lead well. God bless.